Welcome back to another edition of the Fried Egg Golf Podcast. I am your host, Andy Johnson. Today, I'm joined by a friend of the program, a former big part of the program, former co-host of this podcast, Garrett Morrison. Hello, Garrett.
Hello. How's it going, Andy?
It's going great. We're going to talk golf architecture today. Always exciting, always fun to open up the mailbag and kick around some big topics in golf. So we each picked 4 questions to bat around. So we should have a pretty full. I feel like we always have like a big aspiration. We're gonna get through a lot. I figured if we just picked 4 each, that it would probably fill up the pod.
Let's say aim small, miss small.
Exactly. And before we get to the mailbag pod, big news in the Fried Egg Pro Shop. It's Black Friday. It's that time of the year. It's time to save. It's time to shop. That's the way this works. Load up on your holiday gear. The Fried Egg Pro Shop has a Black Friday sale. The code is BF Sale, which gets you 20% off everything. As a reminder, Fried Egg Golf Club members, you guys get a little bit more. So if you use your normal code, it's very secretive for those that aren't members, but if you use your normal Fried Egg member code, you get 25% off this week. The only things that aren't included in the sale at proshop.thefriedegg.com are our book, our new coffee table book that is going to ship pretty soon, and golf bags. So those are the only 2 things that are excluded. Do you have a favorite pick, Garrett, from the Pro Shop?
I mean, there are so many, and plus, I might not be totally up to date on what we actually have in the Pro Shop, in all honesty, because it changes pretty quickly. Items sell out pretty quickly, and we have a great crew led by Meg Atkins and Abby Liebenthal that keep things really fresh in there. But I recently, in a newsletter, recommend getting a humble koozie, a not interested in fighting koozie, which I think could be very useful for some people, because if you're using a koozie, you're probably drinking a beer. And if you're drinking a beer, you might be in an environment where people might want to fight, because they're getting a little lubricated. And you're just telling people with this koozie, I'm not interested in participating in that. And I think it could help people evade certain situations. Yeah,
it could save you. Could really get you out of a jam. I like that. I got a couple Recs. I love the Beat Dratty. We got a bunch of Andy hoodies. Check that out. And a bunch of other Dratty stuff. But then I'm a huge fan of this Fried Egg Golf American Needle hat. It's just got Fried Egg Golf in block text on it. I'm just a big fan of it. So that's my rec. And really earnest rec. It's not on sale. You can't save money. I think the book's going to be awesome. I'd recommend the book. Check out the book. Garrett put a lot of time and energy into that book. It is, I think it's going to be a beautiful book to have and to read through. The pictures are spectacular. The writing's great, and I think it looks really good. So I would recommend the book.
The book's so cool. I mean, yeah, I was charged with editing a lot of the words that are in the book, but the design of it is so cool, and the photography that we have in there, mostly taken by Andy, obviously you, Andy, Cameron Hurtis, and Matt Ruchis, is beautiful, and I think the way it's displayed in the book is going to be really fun.
Yeah. Did you have any photos that snuck in?
I think I must have. I photographed like Victoria Golf Club in Australia is in there, and I was the one who photographed that one. And so
you're selling yourself short.
People might notice a decline in the quality. I would assume like it's definitely not my specialty, but I did my best at Victoria. Pretty much everything looks good in golden hour light. So as long as you get good light, that sort of compensates for a lot of sins.
Yeah, so check all that out. proshop.thefriedegg.com. It's BF Friday. And while we're at it, I know it's not summer anymore, but Maui Nui, our friends at Maui Nui, have an always summer sausage. And it's the cleanest, most nutrient-dense lunch meat on the planet. And it's crafted from 100% wild harvested axis deer from Maui, seasoned with Hawaiian red sea salt and pink peppercorn. So this tastes great. It fuels performance. It does good for the planet. And listen, it's not always summer, but you can always eat summer sausage. It's not a deli meat. It's a completely new way to have a sandwich. I had one of these recently. It was delicious. I would recommend it. Honestly, like, I didn't know what I was getting into, and it was a delightful sandwich meat. A lot healthier than your typical sandwich meats, those deli meats. And like high in protein, and it's super clean nutrition, unlike your typical deli meat. So if you're interested in Maui Nui's always summer sausage, you can go to Maui Nui Venison. That's MAUINUI Venison, VENISON.com/egg. And when you're asked about how you heard about Maui Nui, make sure to mention this podcast because it helps support the show. So go get your always summer sausage, even though it's the winter. It'll revolutionize your lunchtime sandwiches at MauiNuiVenison.com/egg. All right, big thanks to Maui Nui for the support this year. Garrett, let's get into the golf architecture discussion. Since you're the guest here, let's give you the first question.
I get first
turn
choice.
on my influencer mic.
Oh my goodness. Okay, where do I start? Well, there were a lot of great questions. We each chose 4, so we chose a total of 8, and so there are many we're not going to get to, but that always happens anyway, so we just did it by design this time. The first one I'd like to talk about is from Brian Decker on Fried Egg Golf Club. So we put out a call for questions within our new community forum in Fried Egg Golf Club, which has been a lot of fun so far. Whatever you may think of message boards on the internet, this one is I feel like so far it's one of the good ones. But in any case, Brian asks on FEGC, the privately owned ultra premium national membership club model seems to be the most common source of quality architecture over the past few years. Beyond the obvious examples like the park, what are some other forms of developer/ownership models that you've seen that have produced good golf and might be scalable elsewhere?
I don't think there's been a lot of diversity in the types of models. I think one that jumps to mind is the public-private partnership for public golf.
This is the answer.
Where a private group, ideally, that has the aligned intentions with a municipality or a county. One that would jump to mind is Rustic Canyon. This is an example of this. And don't I don't know the exact intricacies of it, but it's a lease, and one of the big parts of the lease is is keeping the golf affordable. And what you get there is you get a ownership group of the lease that is aligned, and maybe it's not an ownership group, it's a leasee that's aligned with the municipality or county, where it is, hey, we want to provide an asset for the community, and we're going to give you, the key here is that give them a long lease that's very manageable. A lot of times you see these and it's $1, a year. Some structure it different ways. There could be profit sharing. But anyways, it sets up a situation, because the problem with so many of these, municipalities or public golf courses when they go to a lease model is if you give somebody a 5-year lease, there's no time to put significant capital improvements in place and recoup the money. You need to have a long-term lease. And this is where 50, 70, 100 years is really beneficial, because then all of a sudden, if you want to do a major project, let's just say you need to do the irrigation. It is worn out, and you also want to, redo the bunkers and some greens and make some big changes with the golf course. Okay, if I put $8 to $10 million into the golf course, I now have the opportunity to recapture that revenue over 10, 15 years. What the issue is when these leases are short is you have no incentive to do that because you're just going to lose money, and the person leasing the property could change who they lease it to, So I think that's probably the model that's worked the best. I think there's room for other models. We just haven't really seen it yet. I think the model I'm kind of most interested in is the idea of extremely low amenity golf that's new.
Yeah. Mom and pop golf. I'd love to see how mom and pop golf might work in the current environment. Mike Young at the Fields outside of Atlanta is a big advocate of people trying this. It's not a big profit business, but you can make a profit if you save costs and if you operate at a very, efficient, according to a very efficient philosophy. And you might be presenting course conditions that aren't luxurious, but they're serving a certain segment of the market. You're providing affordable golf for people, and you're not relying on the backing of a municipality to do it. So I would like to see more people try mom and pop golf, because there are a lot of people out there who love golf, who really would like to own a golf course and run a golf course, but are scared to do it because, they think that they might lose all their money. And that's a legitimate worry. But you just have to be smart and efficient. And I think you can do it. There are a number of examples out there of people who are doing it, and they're relatively rare, and not all of them are the greatest courses in the world. But I wish people weren't as scared as they seem to be to pursue this.
Well, I think some of it's such a follow the leader type situation, and I think also where people get wrapped up is they feel like if they own a golf course, they have to have the most luxurious, most talked about golf course. And often what gets propped up in golf is exclusivity, opulence, and over the top features. Not necessarily even the golf course. I'm not talking about the golf course features. I'm talking about the comfort stations, the clubhouses, the amenities. And sometimes what gets lost is one of the things I talked about this with KVV a little bit is there's a startling lack of development across the different markets in golf. All of the development right now is at the high end.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see if people could make different models work. And I understand the construction industry and materials industry has made some of that difficult.
There's also a startling lack of development in high population places, but that's and that's another issue having to do with land costs and a number of understandable factors. So a couple of thoughts on models, quick thoughts. One, you mentioned the lease agreements that many municipalities have for their golf courses. Those are pretty common, but the leasees that I'm most interested in, or that I tend to be the most interested in, are not the big companies that have a lot of these management contracts. There are efficiencies within those companies, and some of the companies are better than others, but that's kind of the usual thing, is that a municipality is going to give the lease to a company that has a lot of other accounts and a track record. And that can work out fine, just depending on the specific people who are there. Sometimes it's not so great. Sometimes there's not a lot of heart and soul put into those projects. But I tend to like the leases that are taken by individuals or very small businesses that want to make something of their golf courses, invest in their golf courses. Those ones can have really, really good results. Public-private partnership, you mentioned this. There are a lot of different versions of this. There are groups in cities like Nashville that are fundraising and pulling off pretty ambitious renovation projects at municipal courses because they've gathered together a bunch of golf enthusiasts who have some money and they've decided to support their municipal courses. And that is definitely something that we saw at the park and something that we're occasionally seeing popping up in various cities across the country. But I wish it were a little more common. And then the final one I want to mention is the possibility of a community-oriented, very low-cost private club. I wish there were more of those. I think that's a feasible model. Probably not as hard to work out as the mom and pop course. But if we had a greater supply of affordable private clubs, a lot of the pressures on public golf and a lot of the movement toward really high-end private golf wouldn't be as worrisome.
I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit with that one. One of the reasons we don't have that as much anymore is that the demand for private golf is so high in metropolitan areas that what were the affordable options have gotten more expensive since COVID.
Yeah. Everybody has really high initiation fees right now. So
a fascinating study would be, it would require somebody with, a little bit of intel and relationships in a city, would be to compare the costs of membership between dues and initiation of clubs in a major city like New York or Chicago or LA. If you could get a full list of a good list of clubs, compare pre-COVID, post-COVID, and what they are now, I think it would be shocking how much the price has gone up for clubs that used to be considered very affordable.
Yeah.
And it's just a demand thing.
I mean, huge in the 2020s. This has been a recent change.
This is just economics at work.
Yeah.
It's not anybody's fault. And what they've done is they've improved their club with the capital and there are more amenities than ever. But I think one of the things that's happened in golf is it's really... I wrote about a course that I was a member of I was probably a member from, 2013 or 2014 through 2017, probably 2017. The Calumet Country Club, which closed this past week. And, I found out after I wrote the piece that there's a lot more going on potentially with it. Maybe a story to come, but one of the things I think about is I was in my late 20s and a great woman, Lorraine Scodro, who runs tournaments for the CDGA, the Chicago District Golf Association that I played in a lot of those. She ran tournaments for them. And she said, Andy, you're costing your money. You live in the city. You're costing yourself money every year that you don't join Calumet. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you play all this golf. Like, why wouldn't you join there? The deal's great. So I went down and I looked at it. And at the time, and this was probably a harbinger for why they had financial problems and were in financial crisis. It was $150 a month for me to join.
Yeah. And this was, 2013, still in the blast zone of the Great Recession and still at a low point for golf. Right. And so this was probably the best time in the past, 100 years to try to join a private golf club in terms of finances.
So they had a referral program which knocked it. I knocked it down. I was paying $100 a month, and I had, I think, $100 food minimum a month, and it was an amazing deal. I played so much golf. I got so many of my friends to join, and it was a great place. And I don't think I'm not saying that's the model. I want to be clear. I know that that's not a real model for golf, but I think about today. Where do you talk about what's going on in the world and the way the costs have gone up? Where does it, we've seen all this growth. Where does the 28-year-old young professional play golf who is, working their ass off to just house themselves at this point if they live in a major city?
Mm-hmm. Where does the regular 40-year-old dad play golf? I don't know if there are even those places right now, like middle-class, middle-aged people.
And it's a great situation. The game has grown so much in terms of participation. But you've done some stuff with the NGF. I think we're in such a similar position to the 90s when they recommended, was it the 90s? They recommended a new golf course that needed to be built every day. Was that? I know that you have you have this in your vault of a brain.
I bring it up from time to time with my friends over there at the NGF. I think that they learned a lesson from that prediction / recommendation and are more cautious now in their kind of prognostications about where the industry is going.
But golf has this huge supply issue at every level. And I don't foresee any way of fixing it.
Yeah, aside from increasing the supply, which has proven to be, I guess, too expensive.
Yes.
And land costs are the big factor there. Yeah, where I would just like to see some work done is on economy of construction and economy of maintenance. I'm not sure that really that many people are thinking about those things. People just sort of seem to accept that right now golf courses cost a certain amount to build and maintain. But a lot of what people think of as needs of construction and maintenance are actually wants. And I would like to see a perspective shift among golfers about what constitutes good conditioning. And I would like to see a perspective shift among developers about how much these projects actually cost, because I don't think that they need to cost as much as they do. So that's at least one area I'd like us to work on, but I recognize it's a tough situation. Nobody can afford to build an affordable golf course anymore, and it's a real problem. But the current economic conditions that we have right now won't last forever. Things will shift, and the golf industry will shift with it.
And if the economic conditions shift, it'll be interesting to see if golf's demand issue shifts.
Yeah, let's hope that the shift isn't disastrous. But of course, the trend in economic shifts over the past number of years has been, they've been a little more severe than you would want.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the next question. We just
finally, yeah, right. We're gonna even fall short. We've got to knock these out here.
All right. This is a question about how we rate courses. In case anybody doesn't know, we rate courses in Fried Egg Golf Club. If you join, you can get access to, I think we're probably at like 150 reviews at this point with ratings. We do a 0, 1, 2, 3 egg system. It's very similar to a Michelin star system.
Yeah, I saw on the app known as X recently that this would be a great idea for how to rate golf courses, and somebody should do it. And I think it was our friend and colleague Brendan Porath who put his hand up and said, "Actually, we do that."
Yeah. So a question from Mike I'm.
I think it's Im. Is it
I think
Im?
it's I'm.
Is it Im? Okay. Yeah.
I
Apologies to
feel
Mike.
like
He's a major.
I was told by the whole family at an event
Oh,
that
okay.
is I.
Okay. I haven't met him in person. He's a big contributor to Fried Egg Golf Club and a very seems like a very nice guy.
Great player. Whole family, great players in their own right.
His brother is a coach, right? At is it his brother?
Yeah.
At the University of Iowa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Played on a bunch of developmental tour, like Latin America for a while.
Play some ball.
They all can get her around. Father and sons. How do you guys egg? I guess that I would say rate.
How do you
rate? Egg?
Yeah. How do you? Yeah.
9 versus 18, and a follow-on question from Ben Dennison is how to evaluate 9-hole courses that later a different architect comes in to make up 18 holes. This is common. This is a happenstance place.
This is especially on the East Coast.
In the Midwest, because a lot of farm towns have only needed 9 holes, and the reality is they only ever needed 9 holes.
Yeah, I mean, any place where golf was developed before, say, the 1970s, even, this is a pretty common situation.
So it's how should we think about ranking and evaluating these courses when maybe these courses would be better off staying 9 holes? And what is your favorite 9-hole turned 18-hole later course in the country?
Okay, so kind of 3 separate questions there. How do you rate?
Let's just start with how do we rate 9-hole
versus 18? Yeah, I mean, I can knock out these questions pretty well. It is a tough issue when you rate a 9-hole course and you're trying to figure out, okay, if this is America's best 9-hole course, does it have to be 3 eggs? And we recently actually asked that question with a course profile and rating that our colleague Matt Ruchis did on Culver Academies, the golf course at Culver Academies. It's an excellent Langford and Moreau course that has been beautifully gradually restored, owing in large part to the efforts of the superintendent there over the past
Bobby
number
Weed
of years.
First.
Bobby
Weed did
Bobby Weed, and recently Brian Schneider has made some suggestions there. So credit to everybody involved. But in any case,
Michael Vesely is the superintendent who's done an incredible job.
Yeah. So Matt gave Culver one of the most aggressive ratings that I think we've ever given. He gave Culver 3 eggs, and he made an argument as to why it deserved it, and I support that argument 100%. I would say I try to rate courses according to what they're trying to do. If the course is trying to be a great 9-hole course, then I'll rate it according to how well it is a great 9-hole course. So yes, I absolutely think that 9-hole courses can get a top rating. I also think that short courses can get a top rating. And I actually gave 3 eggs to the short course at Sand Valley, the Sandbox, because I think that that's the best par 3 course I've ever played. I think it's an incredible work of architecture. The green shaping there is so good. It kind of blows my mind how good that golf course is. But a lot of people would hesitate, I think, to give a short course a top rating because it doesn't contain par 4s and par 5s. And maybe to a lot of people, it's not a completely satisfying version of golf.
Shot values. You got to worry about.
How do you talk about strategy, strategic design, or shot values, or protection of par, our favorite criterion? I'm just kidding about that, obviously. How do you rate a short course? And again, my philosophy is, and I don't always stick to this 100%, but I think my basic philosophy is rate a course according to what it's trying to do. And that extends to affordable courses versus high-end private courses. If the course is trying to be a great $40 18-hole golf course, then I think that you have to approach it from a slightly different perspective than you would approach a course with a that's trying to be the world's greatest high-end private course, right?
Yeah. I think determining their identity is such an important piece of evaluating a golf course. And I don't want to be pretentious about evaluating golf courses. To a certain extent, how I think about when I rate golf courses, a lot of it is do I, and I don't want this to sound too simplistic. I think about all of the, various things that go into a golf course, like the routing, the bunkering, the greens, the turf, the, all of that. But really, when it comes to putting a score on paper, I think about how much do I think about going back there and dying to go back and play it. And, for me, courses that I just dream about going back and playing, and this extends to places like, Diamond Springs, which is, I believe they've gone from $35 to maybe like $50 now. But I dream about playing there. I don't want to give too much away, but I was going through the event calendar with Will. And we have an event there this year. And I saw it on the calendar and I said, "Ooh, Will, I think I got to go to that Diamond Springs thing." And he goes, "Well, it's during the U.S. Open." I go, "Oh, I won't be there."
And you've already been to Michigan a million times, but you still want to go to Diamond Springs.
So for me, now we could get really, I think the right word would be pedantic, right?
Pedantic?
On the different, aspects that go into it. But at the end of the day, if I'm jumping at the opportunity to go play somewhere, to me, that is a core part of it, whether it's 9 holes, 6 holes, 12 holes. And I think Culver's like a great example of that. Anytime I am within, really anytime I'm in Chicago and I'm thinking about going to play golf, Culver rattles around in my brain and it's 3 hours away. Anytime I'm in Chicago, I'm like, oh, I could go to Culver. And to me, if it's 3 hours away and I'm going to just drive down there, it's got a very high appeal in the rating. So for me, holes don't matter whatsoever. Type of golf, I don't think necessarily matters on, like, I'm not going to dock a course because it's a short course on the egg scale. I'm going to rate it, against other. And I think it makes it a little bit cleaner when you do it that way. Because if you're thinking about rating restaurants, you wouldn't be like, well, I like Italian food more than ramen. So all the
sorry.
ramen places are docked.
Sorry, Japan.
like, and I think these different forms of golf, and likewise, like what you brought up, you have championship courses like Shinnecock, and you have really fun golf courses that are private and well maintained, like Cape Arundel and Shinnecock. How do you rate those? They have two completely different objectives.
It's apples and oranges, and that's part of why we don't really love ranking courses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Because that really forces you to say, okay, what's better, Cape Arundel or Shinnecock? Like, how do I come to that decision? Putting courses in buckets allows for a little bit more flexibility about how we're assessing courses. And we like to change our mode of assessment depending on what the course is trying to do.
Yeah, I've seen like all these like very intricate scoring systems. Like you have to rank out of 10 a million times.
No offense to anyone who does this. I know people who do this, and it looks like it's just a hobby. It's just fun. I could not be less interested in doing something like that. Like trying to mathematically work out the perfect rating system for a golf course. I just don't think that's just not how I go about assessing a golf course.
I also think like it becomes very formulaic, and there are certain things that some golf courses have that's just this like special sauce to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A good example of a course that I'm particularly enthralled with is Brambles in California. It's been a very long growing period, and at different points I was kind of like, in my head, I don't know if it's ever going to get to what they're telling me it's going to get to with the turf. And we had an event up there a couple weeks ago, and we played, and the turf was just so incredible that I'm just enthralled by it. But if you looked at it from like a site standpoint and a hole by hole, maybe it doesn't, like, it's not going to just wow people off the page. But for me, as they keep getting it more and more dialed in, the next thing they have to get done is the native. It's just going up and up and up because there's just, it has an intangible quality between the place, the turf, the architecture, the setting, that all melds together, that if I graded it out on point by point, I would find a lot of detractions. And by doing that, you get so specific that you almost lose the plot. And I think, like, this might be similar, and to if you're evaluating a prospect for the NFL or for the NBA,
Mm-hmm.
and you get so, I would think, like, grading out really in depth is kind of similar to being enamored with measurables, but just ignoring on-field production. And for me, how I feel about the course, and oftentimes one of the best things to me is do I just want to just keep going and playing golf, and am I sad if I can't just go play more? And that's kind of like watching somebody being like, yeah, they're just great at this. And to me, a great golf course is you kind of know, and I there are all these things that go into it, and you could talk in depth about the greens and the variety of the greens, the routing, but there is just that intangible nature to great golf courses that maybe if you broke it down, you could nitpick on things, but they just have a special sauce.
Yeah, this is supposed to be about golf course appreciation. And when you get too deep into rating golf courses, you might lose sight of the fact that it's supposed to be about golf course appreciation. But to get to the other aspects of the question here, which were asked by Ben Dennison.
These are great questions, too.
Yeah, it's a really cool question. Yeah, how do you evaluate a 9-hole course that later became 18 holes? And I will say my belief is that I evaluate the course that exists now, regardless of what its history would be. But I also acknowledge that, yes, a course can become worse sometimes when it's expanded to 18 holes. If those 18 holes are not as good as the original 9, even though all 9 of the original holes might still be there, still be intact, the course as a whole can decline, in my estimation, if it now consists of 18 holes, 9 of which are not nearly as good as the other 9. And this is the case at a lot of courses. The one that always comes to mind for me is, I haven't been to, but I've heard a great deal about Thundara in New York. I think that's how you pronounce it. Great original Donald Ross 9-hole course, along with an additional 9 that was built in the 50s or 60s that just has a completely different architectural philosophy behind it, on a completely different kind of piece of land, and just is the opposite in many ways, and is really not very good, has not stood the test of time very well. Well, that original 9 holes is still there, and it's terrific, and it's a great reason to go play the course, but I would probably rate that original 9-hole course higher than I would ever rate the full 18, because again, I'm rating the course that is in the ground. My favorite course that has gone through this kind of transformation would maybe be an obvious one, and that's Prairie Dunes, where the original 9 by Perry Maxwell there is a masterpiece, maybe the greatest 9-hole course ever built. The additional 9 by his son Press Maxwell, built in the 1950s, is missing a little something of the magic of those original 9 holes by Perry Maxwell, but really are pretty good.
They're great.
Press did in fact, he did a great job, considering the context in which the time period in which he was doing all this. He did a great job of matching the new holes to the old holes, to the point where 99.9% of people playing the golf course would not be able to tell that one portion of this course was built 20 or so years after the initial portion of the course. And so I think Prairie Dunes is an example of a course that went through the 9 to 18 transition and came out very nice.
Definitely the best example. And I sat and listened. I had a friend who wanted to make the argument that the Press 9 was better than the Perry 9, and I sat and listened.
A lot of people do make that argument. Yeah,
and
I mean, I don't agree with it, but I get it. I get where that comes from.
I don't think it's like insane. There are a lot of people tell me a lot of insane things. I actually might think it's a little insane, but I listened, and
I only kind of disregard it. I don't disregard it. I only disagree with it confidently because I think that original 9 is such a masterwork.
I think what sucks about this is oftentimes I think like less golf is better, just in general. The less you build, the better the result. Now I get the point of, you want more utility. 18 holes is the standard, but just in general, I think more facilities, specifically public facilities, would be better off as 9-hole facilities than 18-hole facilities.
Yeah.
And the case of this is basically through the Midwest. All these, there's so many great public golf courses that were built by Langford Moreau that were turned into 18 holes, that the new 9 is an utter disaster. In different, varying levels of disaster, to be clear. But one that jumps to mind, there's a place in Northwest Indiana called Legacy Hills. It used to be LaPorte Country Club. The front 9, and it's not in great shape. The front 9 is pure Langford Moreau. It's not well taken care of, but it's amazing. The landforms, everything, it's amazing. The back 9, just don't even bother. Just pay the $10 to play the front 9. I think it's maybe 15.
So like a waste of time.
Don't even go across the road. Park. Don't go. But then you have like other ones. Marquette. People go to Gray Walls. Don't skip Marquette, which is the sister course to Gray Walls in Marquette, Michigan. It's like for Moreau 9, and I think it was I can't remember the guys. I think it was David Gill is the other architect. He actually did West Bend, another Langford Moreau's other 9 as well.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he was a specialist in this very particular art.
Yeah, and then another one, another example of this is Harrison Hills, which had an additional Tim Liddy design. Tim Liddy's holes are, I would say, on the offensive scale, a little bit lower than, say, Legacy Hills, but he messed around with some of the Langford Moreau holes, which is a shame. He tried to match the style. I think you could go both ways on that one as to whether the golf course is better. But I think 9-hole, as you see with Culver, I think Culver is unequivocally the best 9-hole golf course that I've seen. Now, I haven't seen Whitensville. Unfortunately, Cameron has seen Whitensville on our staff, but he hasn't seen Culver. So we can't get the definitive. But Culver, for me, is the unequivocal champ when it comes to 9-hole courses in America. And Harrison Hills, Marquette, and West Bend would all be able to challenge if they were just 9 holes. And you think about it, it's like, yeah, the best 9-hole golf course in America is a nice ring.
Yeah. And if you're a 9-hole course, then go after that crown as opposed to wanting to be something else. Something just occurred to me. I can't believe I didn't bring this up initially, but Pacific Grove is a great example of a course that evolved in the opposite direction, where the initial 9 holes was fine, but kind of hasn't aged well because of tree plantings and neighborhoods springing up around it and all that kind of stuff. But then the second 9 in the dunes, designed by Jack Neville in 1960, is spectacular and has become the clearly superior 9, and one that people will often play by itself and not even go across the road.
Neville's an interesting character in golf architecture.
Yeah, I think he just lived his life in the Monterey area, routed Pebble Beach, and then in 1960 got hired by the municipality of Pacific Grove and did another really good routing.
He built Glen Eagles too.
Yeah.
Around that time.
Yeah.
He worked for the city for a number of years. I think what happened was the Depression hit and he got this city job. He was, I think, the superintendent of their golf courses. And then after he retired from that, he got back into building golf courses.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That was Tom Shea, the great proprietor of or leaseholder of Glen Eagles, told me that story.
Oh, well, that would be interesting to know more about. My impression of Jack Neville until this point was just that he was kind of like a gentleman amateur and just kind of was in the golf world.
Yeah, that's I think the story. All right, let's take a quick break. Let's talk about our friends over at Groove It. You know, everybody's looking for great gifts. One of the things I find myself always looking for, great stocking stuffer. And let me tell you, I got a great stocking stuffer for you. Head over to grooveitbrush.com. That's grooveit, GROOVE, itbrush.com. And use the promo code FRIEDEGG for 15% off any purchase. You might be wondering, what is a Groove It brush? They are the top-rated golf brushes on the market. They're veteran-owned and operated. And listen, clean grooves mean better golf shots. So this is the way you're going to play better golf in 2026, is with the Groove It brush. The perfect one for the stocking stuffer, Mini G. It's a smaller brush, doesn't use the water. That's going to slide right into a stocking. It's the brush you see lots of tour players using. You know, you just look at their belts. They got it attached to that. All of their products use the heavy-duty nylon bristles that clean clubs without damaging them. These are awesome. Buy it at grooveitbrush.com or your favorite golf retailer, and they're in thousands of Walmarts. So this is super easy to get. You can get it all over the place. Only way to get 15% with Fried Egg is at grooveitbrush.com. Thanks to Groove It, and let's get back to Garrett.
All right. Do we want another question?
Yeah, let's go.
Question from Randy Sierra from FEGC. He says, there's plenty written about naturalism and the blending of manufactured features into the natural landscape. What makes visually manufactured architecture great, and what are some examples? Okay, so this question kind of challenges the common the conventional wisdom that beautiful golf features are the ones that are natural or indistinguishable from nature. But we all know that that's not the end of the discussion, because there are manufactured looking courses that we all like. So what is it that makes a good manufactured looking course stand out from one that from one that is offensive looking?
Oh, there's a lot of varying degrees of manufactured. I mixed up Jack Neville and Jack Fleming.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes more sense to me now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fleming is the guy. Yeah. Fleming did some work. He added he added some holes to Sharp Park. He did a few other things. He was an associate for various architects.
Yeah.
And
he met Alistair McKenzie in an Irish pub.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's how he got into the architecture world. But I just mixed that up. He built Glen Eagles. I got
two
my
different Jacks.
I got my Jacks.
And to be clear,
in San Francisco.
Jack Fleming didn't have anything to do with Pacific Grove, but he did have a lot to do with a lot of other courses in the area.
Different scales of manufactured. Something that I found interesting spending time with the architects of Tim Jackson and David Kahn, who I went to Scottsdale National with. That is an extraordinary manufactured golf course. I think that's actually probably one of the more underrated or talked about really great modern designs. And I understand why. It's because nobody sees it.
Yeah. Did you mention that it's who it's owned by?
Yeah, it's owned by Bob Parsons. It's a very high cost to get in. And I don't think
the
a lot of people
GoDaddy guy,
play it.
the PXG guy, just in case people, play these irons.
But the guy did a great job letting these guys build it.
It's a great course. Those guys did an amazing job. It really is. Bob is an awesome owner because he just let those guys do their thing.
Yeah, but I mean, they had a big budget, and obviously this goes into it. But something they told me about manufacturing golf, because if you went out there, you'd never believe that it was just all built, but it was effectively a plot of land. We have a YouTube video all about this if you're more interested in looking at this. But it was a plot of land that was like flat, graded for houses, and they moved heaven and high earth to create a really cool place to play golf. And I don't have the exact number, but they made roughly this is just rough numbers off of memory, a 60-foot tall, 600-yard mountain. And what I was like, that had to be here. And they're like, it wasn't. And I was like, what? And they're like, the key to manufacturing something is to make it so big that you could never believe it's fake.
This is kind of a Fazio principle. This is what they learned from Fazio.
Yeah, but I don't think Fazio ever went that big, but they created this.
Maybe a couple of more modern places, but yes, you're right. And I don't think he ever did it, even as far as I've seen, quite as well as Jackson Kahn did it there.
It's so outlandish that it works, that it feels like you're playing in a natural setting. So I think that's one end of it. But then there's a more natural, less earth moving, but creating artificiality. And I think a lot of the greatest golf courses in the world are actually very artificial golf courses. Every Seth Rayner golf course is extremely artificial. It's artfully done, but the shapes and such are artificial.
Yeah, I mean, there are every golf architect since the Golden Age basically has manufactured features. Some put an effort into blending those features in and making you think that they were there previously. Others don't make as much of that effort and are willing to let some of their work stand out and show from the natural terrain. And I think both methods can yield good results. For me, the difference comes with the taste and the skill with which manufactured features are generated. And this doesn't necessarily mean the skill of making them look natural, but just the skill of making them look interesting, right? So if we're talking about overtly manufactured features that are not trying to fool you into thinking they're natural, then I really like looking at the work of Walter Travis, McDonald and Rayner, Langford and Moreau, Pete Dye, and then from the current era, Brian Schneider and Jackson Kahn. I think all of those architects do an interesting job of making overtly manufactured features that don't feel just lame. And I think they do that by introducing some unexpectedness, some surprise into the shaping of these features. They are interesting to look at in and of themselves, because they're not just trying to be pretty, they're trying to be interesting. They have something about them that is maybe a little weird, maybe a little off, maybe even a little ugly, right? They're a combination of ugly and beautiful in an interesting way. And so I think that is what separates those architects I mentioned, and what separates their work from the work of your Jack Nicklaus's or your Reese Jones's or even your Tom Fazios, because I don't think that, when Tom Fazio is such a skillful architect and his firm does such enormously expert work. He is one of the best at the industry at tying everything in and making everything feel coherent aesthetically. But to me, it looks like Tom Fazio is just trying to make everything look pretty and look right. And that ends up being a little bit boring after a while. This is just my personal reaction to it. So I prefer architects who are a little, have something about the aesthetics that is just slightly off kilter. And that's to me what makes it interesting.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's irregularity. When something looks like it's just copy and pasted over and over again.
Yeah, and this is a Rhys Jones problem, which is a separate thing, right?
Well, yeah. There are a lot of architects that
yeah.
It's always easy to swerve into that lane, but
easy target.
It's when you get like the monotonous look that's very similar one after another. I like, if you're going to make stuff, make it all look different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be a better result. I will say architecture has gone, like, the trends of architecture has gone to much more lay of the land, even on more mundane sites. And I think a lot of the monotonous comes from masquerading when you're trying to artificially create a site. And what happens in that situation is you hire a giant earth-moving contractor. And that's where you get the monotony of the mounds that kind of just, flow, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, pretty much every modern golf course that's being built right now is being reshaped from wall to wall. And some take that opportunity to do something interesting, and others don't really know what to do with that opportunity. And so you end up with a site that everybody can tell is not because you can feel that it's not natural, but it's also not doing anything interesting with it, which is can be a problem.
Here's a question from Rich Hennig, I think.
Rich Henning, yeah, R. Henning on Twitter.
When do you think the first AI golf course gets commissioned?
Oh boy. I mean, do you think it has already been? I don't know.
He also said, think it would be fun to talk about what AI could do in design.
Yeah, I mean, I might be biased on this because I really don't like a lot of the AI shit that we're seeing right now. I don't like what a lot of the AI focused companies are doing with the technology. But what could AI do in design? What would I like it to do in design? I think coming up with a variety of options for a routing on a certain piece of land would be an interesting use of an AI system. I would imagine that it could just like spit out, according to certain parameters, 100 different routings of possible routings of a golf course that would work and that might generate some creative ideas for the architect. I think that AI could be used to look for opportunities for efficiency and economy of construction. Those could be great gains that you'd find possibly with AI. I mean, I don't know.
I wonder if like a drainage plan or irrigation could eventually be AI. Some
of the more technical needs of a golf course you would imagine could be done by a robot. I mean, the funny thing about new AI stuff, especially the chatbots, is that they're not very good at practical stuff, but really convincing at creative tasks, which is, kind of makes their application to golf architecture a little bit difficult to fathom. I do know that AI has already been helping architects with renderings, with responding to RFPs, with presentations. I think that a responsible use of AI to those ends could be good in the golf architecture industry, but if you're just using it to do your homework, then that's probably not good.
Yeah, well,
the temptation has to be heavy.
So open.
Yeah,
I can see a lot of greens committees really going for AI generated wispy praise of a golf course. I think this is going to happen. It's going to happen.
I know.
I'm just going to be excited to be here to watch the first few. Well, the reality with AI too is it gets better and better the more you use it and understand how to use it. But the issue is there's going to be the first one's probably going to be trash, and maybe the second one, maybe the third one, and these things cost so much money that people will just stop trying to use it if it doesn't deliver really good results. But I do agree that AI, it's like anything, can make an architect's job a lot easier in some ways.
I would hope that it could be used to focus architects on creative tasks in some way.
Yeah.
Right? If the great task of the use of AI is to figure out what can belong to the AI and what has to belong to humans, then in golf architecture, I would love to see, if it's going to be used, I would love to see architects figure out, okay, what portion of this job that I have can I clear off my plate and give to this engine so that I can be more creative, be more innovative in the other areas of my discipline. And I think if it can do that, then great. But it's really hard to figure out exactly where the AI should stop and the human should start.
Yeah.
But that's what we have to figure out.
All right. What's next?
Okay, what's next? We have got a good question from Gray Carlton, who is a young up-and-coming shaper. He says, lots of new builds on great land these days. What current architects would you choose to build a great course on a dead flat site? I think we could address this pretty quickly because we kind of have gotten into some of related issues with a previous question. But what's your first thought there, Andy?
Oh, man. See, this is just, I hate this question. This is my least favorite type of question.
Can we speak in generalities?
Yeah.
Can we say that it doesn't have to be a maximalist?
It doesn't. I think that your favorite course that you talk about on every podcast, Talking Stick, is Bill Corr and Ben Crenshaw's.
I've become too predictable with the Talking Stick talking point.
That's an example of really minimalist architecture on a dead flat property. I think in general you got to have somebody that's really creative. Depending on where the site is, depending on the climate. If it's dead flat and it's sandy, I'd hire like anybody. Because if it's super sandy, you could move stuff around and create really interesting contours throughout. So, I'm going to totally punt here, which is not a great answer. I just,
I want to see Mike DeVries go to town on a dead flat site.
All right, there you go.
That's my answer.
I love that you gave an answer.
Okay.
I'm punting.
Let's move on to your next question.
I'm being very political.
This is
which
very
is not good
diplomatic of you.
podcasting.
The industry has gotten to you, Andy. I think you just understandably resist the idea that you would name one person and not name somebody else. But there are many possible candidates who would do an interesting job with a dead flat site. And frankly, I think, the reason I took an interest in this question is that a lot of the very best architects at this point have spent a lot of time working on pretty much nothing but really great sites or high potential sites at the very least, not dead flat sites. And so I think one interesting direction is to look at some of these architects who have been blessed in the land that they've gotten and try to see what they would do now with a piece of land that wasn't as blessed.
Yeah, I think you could go down the list of heavy hitter golf architects. I think what you'd like to have as a fan of architecture over the period of time is a wide array of varieties and sites. I really like seeing architecture on flat surfaces. To me, as a fan of architecture, it's sometimes more interesting than just the tremendous site because the land does the work. But as somebody going to see stuff, I like to see flat golf courses to see the clever solutions around what they did. Now, am I saying these are better golf courses than getting the best site in the world? No. But it's fun and amusing often to see all of the tricks pulled out. That's, to me, when you see the great architects work on dead flat properties, what they're doing is they're showing you all of the things they've been thinking about for years.
Yeah.
All the different
how deep
ideas.
is your bag, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, if I tried to build 18 holes dead flat land, I'd run out of ideas.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what Bill Cora was worried about at my favorite course, Talking Stick. And the reason I talk about Talking Stick all the time is that, like, I'm very interested in the question of how an architect can be site specific on a bad site, on a supposedly bad site. What can you come up with to still be site specific when the site isn't giving you that much that would usually be considered good for golf? And, you know, people right now are very concerned about freshness in golf architecture, or where it's going next, or where new ideas are going to come from. We're maybe not going to find new ideas on rolling dune land right now and naturalist architecture applied to such dune land. Those are great courses, and I'd like to see as many of them built as possible, honestly, because why not? Like they're all, it always turns out pretty nice, you know?
Yeah, and they're all different because the landscapes and the properties are different.
Yeah. Every site is specific in its way. But yeah, if we're looking for something really different and really fresh, I want to see a smart site-specific architect try to apply their site-specific philosophy to, a place that you wouldn't expect to yield good golf, and that doesn't mean like reconstructing the play, like just denying what the site is. It means looking for, okay, what's interesting here and how can we highlight it? And to me, that's what's so interesting about Talking Stick, is that Corin Crinch actually did that there. All right, next question.
All right, this is gonna be the last one. We aren't gonna get through 4 each.
Yeah,
we set out with our best intentions.
Apologies to the ones left on the cutting room floor. Obviously I'm gonna, as I usually do, I'm gonna get in the community forum and answer a bunch of questions that we didn't get to, because that's fun.
This is from Bob Roltella on Twitter. Are there any architectural features or approaches that could be considered as a means of mitigating technological advances apart from sheer length? Surely, with all the improved ability that comes along with new tech, there might be innovations in golf course architecture to match.
Yeah, man. Come on, golf course architects. Keep up. Keep up. This is it's a good question. This is a pretty common complaint made by Ron Whitten. I'm seeing within this question the seeds of a complaint that Ron Whitten often made in the pages of Golf Digest, where he was the architecture editor. And that is that golf architects have failed to innovate along with the biggest change in the game of golf, which has been equipment technology and distance gains. And that instead of that, according to Ron Whitten, they have just complained about it and said the ball should be rolled back. We should roll back the clock. And he believed that this was a backward-looking stance and not a forward-looking stance, and he abhorred it. I get that argument. The truth is, I'm not sure that there's anything new under the sun in golf architecture when it comes to combating distance gains. And I could be wrong about this, since my job is to kind of react to golf architecture as opposed to design new courses. But I think that Pete Dye had a lot of good ideas about how to mitigate distance gains in the 70s and 80s. He was all about selective narrowness, fairways that kind of changed in their dimensions as the hole went on. He was all about tree lines, like lots of trees, but paired with interesting angles and diagonals and shot shapes and things like that. So trees kind of getting in the way of what good players might want to do, and therefore limiting the amount that they could just wallop away at the ball with their preferred shot shape. He used water hazards to thwart pure bombing, right? So water hazards would sometimes literally kind of cut off the landing zone. And if you want to hit it 320 yards, you're going to be in the middle of this pond. Fine, go for it, you know? And he used classic strategic angles, but he just used them kind of on a smaller and tighter scale, right? That's TPC Sawgrass. That's Harbor Town. Was PGA West in its early iterations, right? That's what he was doing with those courses. He was thinking about distance gains and how golf architecture could be used to combat it. That's how he did it. The problem with all of that is that it made extraordinarily interesting professional courses, but a lot of these innovations were not good models for other courses that wanted to appeal to average golfers, right? Those models were great for TPC Sawgrass and Harbor Town and PGA West. But once you start replicating them, you are going to start getting some frustration from average golfers for whom a lot of these factors, like the trees and the narrowness and the tight lines and the water hazards, you're going to start getting understandable frustration from those golfers about those kinds of features, because those features tend to punish average golfers a lot more than they punish expert golfers. So I'm not sure how much there is that golf architecture can do to stay ahead of the curve on distance gains. And that's why I think there should be a rollback.
Yeah, I was going to point out that the innovations are going to hinder playability for all.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
I think if
almost inevitably, you know,
I think if you wanted to build a new golf course and you said to a designer, the only people that are going to play this golf course are high level players, I think it would look a lot different than what everybody gets is like. I want it to challenge the best, but I want everybody to be able to have a good time playing this, is effectively the charge that, you know, most golf courses give. And if you removed everybody's playing this, I think the golf, you'd see there's a lot of innovation to be done. There'd be a lot of crazy thoughts. It would look so much different than what we consider great golf. Zach Blair, a friend of mine who's, I think got a good golf architecture brain. We've talked about this, and he's like, I just put water everywhere.
Right. Because that's the thing. That is a strategic hazard of meaning for these guys.
If you think about the way that golfers play in the modern era, it's all risk-averse strategy. What they're doing is they are trying to mitigate all risk. So if you wanted to put them in a blender, you put risk everywhere. And you put them in situations where they have no choice but to take on risk. But that would be miserable. An absolutely miserable experience for a 15 handicap. It's why one of the things I think would be interesting with the PGA Tour is if they tried to build a modern day built out championship stadium golf course. I think that's an interesting idea for them to ponder. And people that go play it just understand you're going to shoot 110. You're not going to have a good time. And people will line up to play it. But what the charge to the architect, what every charge to every architect, and this is, people get frustrated with the Golden Age restorations and how they're not holding up to modern technology. And let's just use US Opens. It's like, well, you know, this club is only hosting a US Open every 10 to 20 years. And the reason they did the restoration was so that it's more enjoyable for their members to play every day. If you wanted to make really hard golf for pros, you could do that. It's totally feasible to do. You just need a bunch of new golf courses, because I don't think most people want to play what would be really challenging and hold up to modern technology, I don't think everybody would want to play it all the time. And that's why a rollback makes sense, because it would make a lot more golf courses make a lot more sense for pro golf. Because a great example, Pebble Beach has been just completely passed by technology. And this is what, we're going to see a US Open there every 5 years. And it's just like, they hit wedges on probably like 10 holes, 11 holes. Wedge on one.
The only defense is, the narrow fairways and the rough, which are sort of pathetic.
Think about it. Wedge on one.
Yeah.
Depending on wind, wedge on three.
Maybe a wedge on two.
No.
Like maybe.
No.
No, seriously. It's not that long of a hole. And you can just blast it down it.
I don't think that. It's not a wedge. It might be like an 8-iron, 9-iron.
Maybe in a couple of years.
Wedge on 4. Wedge on six, a wedge on 7, not on 8, not on 9, not on 10. Then you go down the back and there's a wedge on 15, 16. Yeah. I mean, there's
honestly,
a lot of wedges.
I think pros are hitting on wedges on holes that you'd be stunned to see them. I mean, you know this, but that we're all stunned to see them hitting wedges on. So it's not out of the question to me that a pro would hit a wedge on 9 at Pebble, or hit a wedge on 10 at Pebble, or hit a wedge on 13 at Pebble. Like they're doing these things now. But anyway,
maybe this is why they should just play simulator golf.
Right, it should all be the SoFi Center. The great new course of the game is the endless courses of the SoFi Center.
We get new golf holes this year for TGL.
I know. I've been hearing some rumblings about the architects responsible, and I'm curious as to what's gonna
I know
surface.
Pisa's back.
Pisa's back. Of course he's back. He was the star. He was the only one who understood the assignment the last time.
Yeah, he was. All right, Garrett, everybody should check out your Designing Golf podcast. Always a pleasure to break down these questions. I'll probably get in the forum, bat some of these around too. This is a forum now. We got a forum. We got a place to bat stuff around with everybody. It's
been really fun for me. I've written a lot in the forum in the past couple of days, and I'm really enjoying it. It might actually make me like writing again.
Yeah, I'm trying to start to love writing again too.
I know it can be hard sometimes.
Yeah,
listen, it can be hard.
Yeah,
but thank you for having me on the pod, Andy. Lots of fun.
Always great. All right, big thanks for PJ Clark for editing, producing this podcast. Go check out the Pro Shop. proshop.thefriedegg.com and check out our Black Friday deals. Big thanks for all the support. I hope everybody has a happy and safe Thanksgiving.